Hey everyone, I'm Raz from the Semi-Retired Samurai, and on this channel I talk about life after 50 and living life on your own terms. If you're new to this channel, welcome, and I love to talk to you guys from around the world. And you know what, today I noticed something about myself, as a 57-year-old, and I noticed that, I used to say yes to things that I really didn't want to do. Not huge things, but, little things like invitations, favors, commitments. And my entire life, I've always agreed to things. And I think for a lot of you Gen Xers can relate to this, because I've always been the nice guy who's always there and to be the responsible one. And being reliable is not a bad thing. I'm not saying, that it is. But recently I started to ask myself, a little bit more, how should I say? I started asking myself a slightly uncomfortable question before I say yes. And the question is, if I knew I only had 10 years left, would I agree to do this? And I started to say no. And what surprised me was not how people reacted, but the emotions and the reactions that I got regarding myself. And for me, it was easier to say no to people than to say no to the person I spent becoming the last 57 years. Growing up, I was always the responsible one. I was the eldest one in my family, so I always said yes to everything. And I think a lot of this feeling of obligation came from, growing up, and my parents, they always told me to sacrifice for the good of the family. And I don't think there was ever a time I ever said no to my parents, and, without some kind of consequence. Even if I was busy with something, I was always told to just drop everything and forget about it and focus on what they needed me to do. So I think, when you're brought up like that, it was ingrained with me that if you don't do it, then you're going to be seen as a bad, selfish person. And I noticed that when I did say yes to my parents and was agreeable, that I would gain their approval and love. And so I associated that with, if you comply, it makes you a good person. And it shows you how hard you work and what a good heart you have. And I think as adults, when I got a little bit older, saying no really made me uncomfortable. Because I remember, when I used to work for a corporation many, many years ago, thank God I got out of that, but they used to have these, parties, corporate parties on the weekends, where we were expected to go and hang out with the group and just have fun. And for me, I just didn't see it as fun, because I want to head out with my friends on the weekend and do things with them, because I spent, the entire week with coworkers. And a lot of them I liked. I didn't take offense to it, but a lot of them did take offense that I never went to the corporate parties, and it definitely didn't help my standing in the company either, right? So, but it's one of those things where even though I wanted to spend my time, my free time on the weekends with doing stuff I love, and there was no, how should I say, it was not compulsory for me to attend these things, but it definitely, I felt guilty coming in on Monday mornings when people would ask, hey, how come I wasn't there? And they would start making assumptions that I didn't like them, right? And that was not the case. I told them, hey, you know what, I spend, X amount of hours per week with you guys, and, I want time to, enjoy my own time. But luckily I didn't have to play that game, because I left the corporate world in my mid-30s to start my own business. So, but I couldn't imagine doing that for, my entire career. But anyway, that's another topic for another time. So I think there's a big consequence, for being a people pleaser and having the inability to say no after 50, because when you're wasting your Saturdays away when you're 27, it's a lot different than wasting your Saturdays away when you're 50, because we only have a certain amount of Saturdays left, and at this stage in our life, we don't know when our Saturday is going to end. So many people that I talk to have coworkers who have retired or at 65 or 60, and then they pass away and they never get to collect their Social Security or retirement benefits or even enjoy their retirement. So it is an absolute tragedy, and it's something that I definitely don't want to, I don't want to find out, right? And I don't want that to happen to me. And so, knock on wood, hopefully that I will be able to, maximize the free time I have left on this earth. So, what did I do differently, after the age of 50? Well, I started to experiment a lot more, and I started to experiment with saying no selectively. And, in our 50s, the time is very precious, right? And, sorry, the dock here is bouncing up and down because this motorboat just went by. I thought I was getting a stroke there for a sec. But yeah, so where was I? So I start to ask the question, that question I explained to you at the beginning. If I have 10 years left, it makes it easier. Okay, if I ask that question to myself, I tell myself every day, it makes it easier for me to say no to people, right? And I still feel guilty sometimes, and I still once in a while commit to things that I don't want to, and then I find myself trying to back out of it, right? But lately, a lot of times, like for example, I was asked to go out for dinner last night, and they tried. Some friends of mine tried to plan it 2 weeks in advance, and I told them, I'm just really busy, right? And they called me a couple times last minute to see if I was coming, and I said, no, I'm working. And you know what? I'm glad I did, because I'm creating videos like this for you guys. That's what I spent yesterday doing. So and they're okay with it, right? And they told me we'll catch up next time, and but if I had committed to it, and then I commit to another event, I'm going to sit there and I'm going to be not even enjoying my time with them, because I'm going to be thinking about, what else should I be doing? What tasks should I be doing? Because I'm going to come back and I'll find my inbox and everything full. So I want you guys to realize this. I'm saying no. I started to say no lately, but it's not because I'm being selfish, and I think if you guys do it, I don't think you guys should feel selfish, because I'm starting to make things that matter to me a priority. The things that bring me the most joy and happiness, and I'm starting to say yes to people that I want around in my life. There's certain people that are just a complete drag. Why do we keep on maintaining the friendship with them if it's just it doesn't make us happy and it's completely toxic? Say yes to your health. Go out and take care of yourself, because we need to take care of our bodies. We need to stay in shape as we get older, so that we can live a long, healthy life, and maintain our independence as long as possible. And feel free to sit around and do nothing and not feel guilty and having to explain to people, because I think growing up as Gen Xers, we were always taught to, hey, you have to be doing something. You have to be keeping busy. Otherwise, you're slacking off. And it's okay to have those times, right? Without having to justify it all the time. And if you like to travel, go travel. Go experience new things. I mean, it's a beautiful world out there. And, when I was younger, I used to think that, you know, money was the ultimate. It was so important. And I'm not saying it's not. It gives you a lot of options. But, you know, when you get to this age, you know, the time is the most precious thing, right? Your time, your health. And, you know, I can't even emphasize that enough. So, you know, I got over disappointing people. You know, I don't care anymore, really. Because if I don't start doing this now and saying no, then what's going to happen when I'm 70 years old? You know, you can't rewind I'm getting old here. Rewind the tape, the cassette tape, and get those moments, you know, back. You know, they're gone forever. And the last thing I want to do is sit there and wish that I had done this, wish that I had done that, wish I had started this, you know, side business, wish that I had, you know, traveled this country, wish I had, you know, lived my life more authentically, you know. So it's those things that I don't want to carry with me. And so it's my message to you guys. I don't want you guys, you know, to end up, and for myself, I don't want to end up being the person who is paying the price and end up disappointing myself. So anyways, I hope that video has resonated with you. My message has resonated with you. And I'm curious about you guys. What's something that you guys are saying yes to at this stage in life that you really don't want to do anymore? Feel free to comment below and share your thoughts. I'd love to hear from you. I read every comment, by the way. And if you like the channel, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. And I also have my new website up, it's the semi-retiredsamurai.com. Feel free to visit it, and you can subscribe to the newsletter on there where I share my experiment with my life and the things that I'm doing in my life. You know, new things that I'm doing to on this journey, I guess, in the second chapter of my life. Anyways, just want to show you around here. Take a look. It's a beautiful day. So feel free to check out my next videos, and I will see you guys next time. Take care.